Good evening to everybody here in India. Good morning to those around the world. Poet, short story writer, novelist, chair of juries of international literary awards. Keki Daruwalla has been for decades. Master storyteller, much awarded, carries on his engagement with the past and our contemporary world. A very warm welcome, dear Keki, a writer whose passion to give voice to history and our present times. I hand over to you to start our session.
Good evening. Welcome to everybody. I've been asked to start with some poems on fire altar. Uh, the manuscript lay with me from 1992 to 2012 or something. And then I decided to publish it. There was a um, very big conference in Bombay of the Zoroastrian. And well, I'll read. These are mostly sonnets. I'll read two or three, and one more from Fire Altar, if you don't mind. Here
Yes.
we go. I went to Pasargade, the tomb of Cyrus. That's the tomb, and it's there's nothing but silence there and landscape. And I wrote the sonnets much later, of course, when I came back home. Uh, I don't dissemble ever that I wrote at the spur of the moment. Dawn. The ground is not crisscrossed by water channels now. There is no thicket of saplings around the tomb, though across the road a thin stemmed poplar grove flames in autumnal fires. There are no mosque domes, no bazaar, no kasbah, just one vast plain, and asleep on the skyline, python coils that sprawl the low detritus of the Zagros range. It is difficult to conjure up an entrance hall from the bull's severed legs, which you cannot find, or let two peers dictate a profound perspective, a colonnade etched only on the mind. To make a skeleton out of some bone splinter, an imperial precinct out of fluting columns, an ice age out of one solitary winter. I'll read another. Belief is not easy here, never is. One hears the palace was a well lit oblong, exquisitely proportioned. White limestone capitals rose from black plinths like a song. Walls finished in stucco you can conjure up, but not their paint in lapis lazuli blue or turquoise green. Their fade outs disorient. History fades when the signposts are so few. Before I think of paint, I must think of walls, time crumbling, history fraying into mythos, while no mirror, no echo answers from the halls. Emptiness, space. I face a wall at last. I'm no alchemist to make the great crossing from the dross present to the gold dust past. One more sonnet, two more sonnets, sorry. One should have come here at sundown when the amber settles quietly on the Kodachrome and the colors of silence sweep the plains of Murgab like those mineral colored waterfowl that home in from salt inlets of the Gulf to the river here. Over wrinkled waters, dusk fires would have blazed. All mirror fires burned twice. Gold light, gold leaf turned to darkening damp at the crinkled edge of days. Tranquility, stillness, quiet, shadow tones, and edges too subtle for the eye. The touch of light on water is not the touch of light on stone. The poplar grove flames. Each leaf, it would seem, has a bronzed side to its face. Not a sound to stain this excess of quiet, excess of peace, excess of dream. And the last sonnet from this sequence. When you write sonnets, one leads to another. You get another idea and you
Yes.
put it aside till you finish the sonnet you are working on, and then you get to the next.
Yes.
And this is the last where they bring Cyrus to the he's brought dead uh, from one of his wars. The words were ascetic, for they were yours. The offerings were the courts, gems, robes of gold. Sorry, robes of old. Death,
Mm.
sensually abstemious, bone dominated, reclining on a couch with legs of gold. The Magi guardhouse came up nearby, packed with nasal hymns for the soul's good. To keep the fires going, a river of brown shoulders carried frankincense and logs of fragrant wood, and prayers smoked upwards, profoundly intoned by muffled, half masked mobids who now and then, when flame turned ember, lapsed into a drone. Your words lay simple on the limestone face. Here I lie, Cyrus, king of the Persians. Stranger, don't grudge me these few feet of space. And one more poem. Uh, this was when Croesus, his sister, had married the king of the Medes, Astyages, and the man who Cyrus had defeated. And he was the king of Lydia. And he sent to the Delphi oracle huge amounts of gold. There were 117 ingots of gold. I've mentioned that, all those in my introduction to the book. There was a vase of which weighed 500 pounds, all in gold, and the bowls were even heavier than the 500-pound vase. And he sent a big uh, entourage to Delphi, and this is the poem on what happened. The
Mm.
boat to Delphi. The Lydians, as they beach their boat, are greeted by a squall of gulls. They look for signs the sky is dull. The wind drops as they disembark. A lonely buzzard overhead circles the sky in lazy arcs. The priestess spies him from a yard and feels the shadow on her back, slow, circular, and nimbus black. A scrabbling goat, a pebble rolls. She sees the angle of descent, the dust it kicks up as it falls, and knows who's here, breathes a whiff of coastal salt and coastal air, tidies her skirt, straightens her hair, awaits the Lydians as they come to reverently wait upon the Pythia's delirium. All The oracles came from through a delirium. They pass a house, a mother darts to grab her infant as it cries, a snot nosed babe, a crawl with flies. A goat strains at the rope at last, a clearing, a froth of flowers on a wave of grass. They reach the Delphic cave fatigued. The gifts are laid out one by one. A trickle thick of precious stone illuminates a silver tray. Carved ivory, salvers of gold, vases, urn, and amphorae. The envoy speaks. Now that the Medes have fallen, Chaldea isn't far. We need someone to read the stars. Apollo, Croesus must conspire to obliterate the Persian hosts, the Magi, and their cult of fire. Should he go to war? That's the big question. Should he go to war? Pythia, who felt beneath her feet the tides of coming events beat, and scrimmage in the shingle sits on the tripod, throws back her head, closes her eyes, awaits her fits. The sacred bay leaf she has chewed, the sacred waters she has drunk. The vapors rise, the fevers come. She gyrates, contorts her frame. A voice that's readier than hers escapes her like a hissing flame. The stars are bright, the text is clear. Go back, old man, and tell your sire if he attacks, a great empire will crumble. Look to your sides for Greek allies and forge your links. Her hissing suddenly subsides. And when he lost the battle to
Hmm.
Cyrus, he asked the oracle, You told me, you led me up the wrong path. And the oracle said, when we told you that an empire would fall, did you ask us which empire?
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
I'm done with Fire Altar.
Right. Keki, you mentioned three phrases that have just stuck in my mind right now. History fades, time crumbles, and you spoke of the colonnade of the mind.
Yes, yes. Because
I'm
there are no
thinking,
colonnades there in Pasargade. There are no walls. There's hardly any remnant of the palaces that were there.
so what stays on in your mind, Keki? I'm
Sorry.
thinking, what stays on in your mind? You said you wrote the sonnets not spontaneously at that place, but after you came back.
Well,
I'm
one
okay.
sits one sits down with history, with fable,
Right, right.
and writes and
And then
writes.
you write. I'm thinking of your portrayal of Junagarh in
Yes,
Ancestral Affairs.
yes.
I am still shaking with reading that section. The way you got the material, the way you got the linguistic aspects of each community as they speak, the Boxwalas, the Parsi lawyer, the Hindu, the Muslim. What gave you that sensitivity where you're mentioning films of the time, theater of the time, songs of the time, cultural lifestyles of that time, pre partition, Junagarh?
You if you are writing and writing fiction, and especially of the past, 40 years back,
Yes,
50 years
yes,
back, 60 years
yes,
back, I was
yes.
in Junagadh from 1945 as a child to
Hmm,
1948 when my father
hmm.
was the tutor and guardian to the prince here in
To
this
the
photograph.
Nawab.
Right,
Yes,
he's sitting in the middle, and my elder
yes,
brother Tempton is on the right, and I'm
yes.
with my father, and that's the staff in the house. I can name all of them: Ibrahim, Omar,
You can name all of them.
Reva
Yes.
Shankar. So I can. So the Junagadh Hindustani was very different from even the Gujarat's Hindustani. Uh,
Hmm.
Ariel was called a trofa there, you know. So those words have stuck with me. And if you have to be a writer, you have to be observant, whether it is as far as sound is concerned or whether visually. So here we are in 1945 or 1946 at the most with that picture there. I hope people can see the picture. I hope they do.
Yes, sir. People can see the picture.
Okay, fair enough. We can go to the next. क्या हो गया? Yeah, that's my. Oh, that's the. Can we switch back to the previous one first? Yes, that's my novel, and that's my grandmother with her two sons. The one standing is my father, Naswan, and his elder brother. He was older than 13 years older than my father, and this photograph would be 100 years old. It's a very big photograph lying with me, and my father, because my father went to England in 1914 and returned in 21, and he got married in 1925, and so far he has not got married. So this photograph is taken between 1921 and 1925. Can we switch to the next? Yeah, that's the with Geeta Hariharan, the at the International Center at Goa, and I read, and she was gracious enough to chair the meeting at the Goa festival. Thank you, Geeta. We have been old friends since then. Yes, and that is another book. Oh, it's the same book. And Vrinda Nabar, who wrote the first essay on me. I remember that. Anyone ever writing an essay on me, that was Vrinda Nabar. And there's Ranjit Poskote. Vrinda Nabar was the head of the English department in the Bombay University once upon a time, a very erudite scholar. That's the family. And we move on. Yeah, that's my mother and my father with Faredun, who was 10 years older than me, born in 1927. And that's me with my dad. Yes, that's the family with my cousin who is 25, who was 25 years older than me, Nargesh. And that's my granddaughter, and that's my brother Tempton and his wife, my sister-in-law Alu. Tempton is gone, but Alu is very much with us. Thank God. Yeah, at the at our great Brownings in London, it's our silver wedding. Quiet, but we had a few friends over there who came. Ah, yes, that's the old blacksmith shop marriage room. And when I went to Scotland, we drove to Scotland, uh, and those are my two daughters, Anaita Rugzen with my wife Khurshid, or Khorshid rather. Yes, move. Yeah, these are that is Mont Blanc, I believe, and I don't know where we are crossing the ferry here. I have no idea where we were going. That's my Yes, we had a friend, Ruchika. She's a joint secretary now with the Steel, I believe, and the family. Yes, with my granddaughter, Sanaya, and the other granddaughter is Friana. That's the thread ceremony. Oh, sorry. Can we go back? I forgot to introduce my. Yeah, that is my son-in-law Armin, and we. Uh, yes, I don't know where we are. I have no idea. It must be our travels. Yes, next. That's the Navjot, the thread ceremony of
Yes,
my
yes.
granddaughter Naina's.
Mm.
And the father and the mother are right here. Oh, I'm with my
Mm.
sunglasses,
Mm.
and that's Parveen and Cyrus, old friends, and also Samdhi's Vevan, as we say in Gujarati. And that I'm playing at the Blenheim Castle. I captained the Commonwealth against the Foreign Office. Yeah, that's my 1958 photograph of me in my police uniform. And that's my commandant, GK Handu, IGP. He was handsome as Stuart Granger or anyone else. 6 foot tall and very handsome. And I didn't have a flash, so somebody had a flash, and I at that same second I flashed this. That's Vijay Karan. He became police commissioner here. That is Bhinder. That is Jain and Subramaniam, and of course Sitaraman, who passed away long back. And that's the commandant, Mr. Handu. I'm through a Zoom session. Sorry. Yeah.
Photos now
Oh,
of
yes, that's with the Queen when
Queen Elizabeth.
we
Yes.
were from 5 continents and we were presented to the Queen
Mm.
at the co- at the Commonwealth something, and I
Yes.
got it for this particular uh, book, and the painting or the drawing is by Mickey Patel. If anyone remembers him, a very fine
Mm,
artist,
mm, mm.
and an advertisement honcho at one time. Yeah, at the Sahitya Academy.
Thank you,
That's my
award.
brother, and that's the family, the two daughters
Mm,
and my wife.
mm.
Oh, that's the medal with Rajiv Gandhi. He looks very handsome, I find. This is 1985, the Valmiki festival. There was that gas tragedy in Bhopal, and
Mm,
the literary festival had to be shifted to Delhi.
mm.
This is the MP, forgot his name, a very fine poet on the left, and the other is Dilip Javeri. Dilip
Mm,
Javeri.
mm.
Ah, with Khushwant
Yes,
Singh.
Kushbant Singh, you wanted to talk
Yes,
about that.
I had my reading at the IIC,
Yes.
and I had met him when I was additional SP in Agra,
Mm,
1962 or 63,
mm,
and he came, and my SSP was not there. So
mm,
I went and met him. So he asked me, "What do you write?" I said, "How do you know I write anything?" He said, "You
mm.
wouldn't have come to meet me if you didn't write." And then he told me he was my father's pupil. My father taught him in Government College
In
Lahore.
Lahore.
And
Okay.
uh, he was very supportive of me in his columns. And we played tennis at adjacent tennis courts in the Delhi Gymkhana. Yeah.
With Mulk Rajanand.
Yes, that is
Yes,
with Maharaj Anand.
Mulk
That is,
Rajanand, yes.
I don't know who the other people are with him, but this is at the Pune University or Pune University. Uh, he looks very
Australian
forbidding here. We had a very
Hungarian
good
poet, yes.
gathering there. This is in the 91, 92 something,
Mm, mm,
1991, 92. Yeah, that is with Otto Urban.
mm,
He's a
mm,
very, he's passed away, I believe, but he was a very fine Hungarian poet, and he translated half a dozen poems of mine in one of their best literary journals, Otto Urban.
mhm,
That is with Meenakshi
Meenakshi
Mukherjee.
Mukherjee, yes.
That is Sridhar Swami, and that is
Mm,
Keki Dada Boy. Keki
mm.
Dada Boy was in the 57 batch, 1 year senior to me, and my deputy commandant, Mr. Stracy, kept on referring to me as Dada Boy, Dada Boy. He couldn't get the Daruwalla name. And that is Meenakshi Mukherjee.
Yes.
And Sridhar Swami is one of the finest poets in the country.
Mhm,
She's very good.
mhm.
This is with
Vijay
Raymond
Raman Schneider, yes.
Schneider, and he wanted to
Mm,
publish my poems, to
mm,
translate my poems, and I never sent them to him.
mm,
How
mm.
stupid of me! He's from German. He's from Germany, but I've been very careless with uh, what shall we say, advertising oneself. That is at Erlangen. Erlangen is a
Mm,
town, and it has been left exactly as it was 100 years, more than 100 years back.
mm,
It's a
mm,
beautiful place, Erlangen in Germany in 1989, and in '88, Wole Soyinka came. What a shame!
mm, mm.
I miss the big guys always. Yeah, that is
Japanese.
Paul, who was just passed away to
Mm,
our sorrow. He was the
mm,
head of our poetry society in Delhi.
yes,
And there is Mrs. Kusum Ansal
good answer.
and Jatin Das and JP
Mm,
Das. JP Das has gone back to Odisha.
mm.
And there is Albert come here and Albert come there. Eunice D'Souza is in a red
Mm,
saree.
great science,
Lakshmi
yes.
Kannan is in the gray, and
Mm,
GJP Prasad.
mm,
I forget the lady on the left.
mm, mm, mm,
I don't even know where it was and where I spoke and where they were.
mm,
With
Good.
Namita Gokhale, who heads she has many other qualifications apart from heading the um, Jaipur Literary
Japanese,
Festival.
yes.
She's a very
Mm,
fine novelist. And
mm,
I first got in touch with her, hardly touch with her, only her book, Paro. And I reviewed it in the Hindustan Times. The others were calling it obscene or something. And I backed the book. It is a very fine book. And she's a very fine writer. Yeah, shall we move?
mm,
Shift.
mm.
There with Jayanta Mahapatra. Uh, There is uh, there are other boys, that is Makarand Paranjpe leaning across. Now he heads the IIAS in Shimla. Sudeep Sen is there, and
Mhm.
where am I? This is Kerala Festival, oh,
Kerala
with
literature.
Sabita. Yes, with Sabita. We had a very good session at the Kerala Festival last year.
Mm.
That is, yes, we read at Dehradun last year.
Mhm.
Ajit Skote, me, and Smita Agarwal.
Mm.
She's a very good writer, very good poet, and she is the head of the department in Allahabad University. She teaches English. Oh, Indo-American
Mm.
friendship.
Mm.
Oh God,
Mm.
that's Gurudev
Gurudev
Tagore,
Tagore. Yes.
and Maharaja Karan Singh is there.
Yes.
He's going to speak on him. I'm
Mm.
sure I never spoke on Rabindranath Tagore. So my father was a great fan of his and went to Shanti Niketan for a while. That's me at Struga. Struga is in Macedonia, and the gentleman with the beard is Ritsos, Yanis Ritsos, great revolutionary and a very, very fine poet in Greek. And people are surprised that he missed the Nobel. He missed the
Kiki,
Nobel.
talking about the Nobel, we walked down memory lane with all these authors whom you met.
Yes.
Were you influenced by any one of them?
Rich sauce,
Were,
yes. Yes, rich sauce, yes.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I normally stayed away from influences. For instance,
okay.
I wouldn't read T.S. Eliot for years and years because T.S.
Uh-huh.
Eliot has such a hold on you that he,
Mm-hmm.
especially Indian writers.
Oh,
So
yes.
I avoided him. I didn't. Even his prose I bought last year.
Okay.
I've stayed away from him. I
But
want to be myself.
talking of Indian writers, I was reading an interview by Jeffrey Archer today, talking about how popular he is with Indians, how he went for a literary festival and couldn't get over the numbers that were thronging and that had read him. And he
Yeah.
made a statement that I was very quite stunned by. He said, I wish the Nobel Prize had been given to R.K. Narayan. Is this a, yes, Guide, Swami and Friends, Malgudi Days. Is it a rediscovery of Indian writers now on the world stage? I'm thinking of the number of literary festivals we have. So, however much our generation will say younger generation doesn't read, look at the crowds by non-academics in
Yes.
literary festivals.
Absolutely. The last 20 years, the festivals have just flowered, just
Yes,
flowered, and
yes,
there are now over 100 festivals in India. Uh,
absolutely.
so, the time when we were writing, there was nothing. There was
Yes,
nothing.
yes,
You
yes,
just looked forward to something in the Illustrated Weekly, or in the Times of India, and that was it. That was it, and nothing else.
yes. And now there is writing available. We've seen literary festivals, not only Jaipur, not only Delhi, Dhaka. I went to Kathmandu to Nepal
Yes,
and Dhaka, Calcutta. The numbers who are wanting to meet writers, to read. And again, as I said, I'm not talking students in college, I'm not talking scholars, I'm not talking intellectuals, just the general public wanting more and more and more. What would you say
yes.
about that?
Well, nothing like it. Of course, a lot of these festivals also have second-rate writings. Let's be frank, but
Hmm.
it is a great fillip and a great encouragement. I mean,
Hmm.
I wrote my first book of, Under Orion in 1970. It was published, so it's 50
Hmm.
years, and just
Hmm.
because of a letter from Professor P. Lal, and P. Lal said, "I want
Hmm.
your poems. I've read you in the Illustrated Weekly."
Hmm.
So these are the things that encourage you.
And
And
that
I sat
encourage.
down for a year and a half when I wrote that book.
Right.
It's all
Writers
written.
Workshop P. Lal in Calcutta.
Yes, the
Yes,
writer's workshop.
Writers Workshop, yes.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Even now, I got a letter from email from Nishi Chavla and Sachi
Yes, yes,
coming out with a anthology, and I
yes.
wrote my Black Death sonnets. I'm very
Yes.
fond of my what I've written this year, and
Okay.
I'm looking forward to my next poetry uh, enterprise.
Would you like to share that, what you've written under lockdown? Because Nishi Chawla is putting that
I,
together. Writers
I
writing during lockdown.
read, you had time to read. I read Dante and his
Hmm.
Inferno, and
Hmm.
I took off from Canto 10.
Hmm.
So many things. I'm looking forward to that book, and I think it's going to be my better one, or rather, the best I've written.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You write review articles, you write critical articles, you write for the newspaper.
Very
Absolutely
critical.
admirable. Admirable. Your passion for life, the past, the present, and looking forward to the future. Would you like to
Yes.
read from your latest book?
From what
You
my
have it, you said you wanted to
okay.
say.
I one second. Yes, it's here. This is a book called well, the story is an allegory. It is on the emergency,
Understood.
but we always have emergencies, and much of what is transpiring today is uh, is also, in a way, reminiscent of uh, a much lesser extent than the emergency. Of course, the emergency was hellish. I mean, for no rhyme or reason, just to keep a seat, she clamped it. Indira Gandhi clamped it on the country. Otherwise, she would have gone down as a very great uh, political figure. She helped in the liberation of Bangladesh,
Hmm.
defeating and with Manekshaw the the Pakistanis, almost a lack of prisoners, and all the rest. So I don't know. I coming home.
Yes.
So there is a. Before I read, I haven't marked the pages in this one. Swerving to solitude. It's a sort of a saga. This family from UP goes to Canada in 1900, and that's the story of the mother. And the mother leaves a journal, and she the Komagata Maru, where her
Hmm.
husband agitates. Then they are moved out to Mexico because USA hardly wants them, and she gets in touch with Eamon Roy. People have forgotten Eamon Roy, that one of the
Hmm.
greatest sons of
Yes.
India of the previous century, and she becomes his secretary. And then Eamon Roy goes off to. She's almost. I'm hinting at some sort of calf love or the shishya to the guru, and uh, there's a lot of talk on M. Roy. She leaves a journal, and this girl, uh, she fights with her. She has eventually a fight with her husband, who is a deputy secretary and a director in the PMO during Mrs. Gandhi.
Mhm.
And half the story is based in Lucknow because she because belongs to Lucknow. And
Mhm.
this husband then has his cadre changed to Bihar. He's from Bihar, and that is also allegorical. And eventually, uh, his minister dies, and she one day is in Patna and goes to meet her, and she tells him that my money has been swindled by your husband. I'm sorry, I've revealed the 80% of the plot. Uh, the mother has been jailed by Edgar Hoover. She returns to America, and McCarthy. Those are the McCarthy days because she is
Mhm.
influenced by communism because of Emmett Roy. So it's a vast this, but the first this I'll read.
Mhm.
Coming home, she's returning from uh, Kangra, and she writes, sometimes you get down at the wrong station. She comes by train. You find, I was asked to write this initially. Want you to write something. They said you must move the story through a. So I wrote this. Sometimes you get down at the wrong station. You find it is also the wrong night, or worse, wrong dream. It happens when time has not got its screws fixed right. Time never got a mechanical engineering degree from a reputed college. Our auto mechanics do a better job as they steal hubcaps, the rear view mirrors, or the car itself. They are good at screwing. So are lawyers. But that's another world. Law courts, I mean, a metaphor in miasmal mist. How I love my alliterations, Mama. These are letters to Mama, so she mentioned, but these are otherwise chapters in a novel written in first person. You need to be careful when you are tired, and I sure was. I'd enjoyed it for a while as we set close to dusk. We set out close to dusk. We moved out of the station, steel trappings and the foothills fanned out, while trees and pylons slipped by. Feeling twilight slowly chiseled away at the shrinking landscape. When it got dark, I watched the lighted geometries of our glass windows spill across the tracks and race back to nowhere. Yes, I was returning home, but things change. Time is the culprit again. It changes without notice. The damp on the window glass didn't let me see much. As the night tray grated to a halt, I found myself disoriented. If you shout, where am I? Guys will look at you in an odd manner. You sense you are in some sort of trouble. I did. Damp on the window pane prevented me from seeing where I was. I told you. The dream didn't let me see beyond the eyelids. I seemed to have been everywhere. It had been something like a rim of the earth, parikrama. Sorry. When I got down, I had been fighting brush and bramble every yard in my hazy half dream. The steps leading to the overbridge were not a party. Oh, I'm I'm sorry, I'm coughing. The monsoon rains are here. Sand doesn't lash Charbagh anymore. The night moths hover around the platform lights. Urdu poets make a big deal of Urdu poets make a big deal of Shama and Parvana, flame and moth, the male dying at the touch of the beloved's beauty. Let the bugger get his hands on her, and within 5 years of wedlock, he'll go for a mistress while she is having a third baby. So much for poetry, not forgetting love. The hills were better. I understood the language of the wind in the poplars. I knew a Himalayan thrush the moment I spotted its blue in the shrub. The night sky was sharper there. Star clusters spoke to you. Orion, Taurus, the bull with its horn, and of course the great bear. The only constellations I can read. This is the girl writing, Seema. She's married. I'm calling her a girl. Isn't it a shame? You have over 2 decades in the universe. You lived over 2 decades in the universe. She is over 20. And all you know of the skies is our three constellations. But I'm here. Lucknow is another language. I spotted Eka, Tonga, Tum Tum, call it what you will, our one horse carriage, the driver clicking his tongue to encourage the horse. There are no cycle rickshaws to be seen. Where is everybody? What has happened to the bloody place? I noticed that the Tonga driver has a skull cap and a mixed black and white beard. Now, if we can only agree at this hour, Kaisar Bagh, I shout as I struggle with 4 other passengers, all equally desperate. Crowds and desperation are twin brothers. I feel too many people are in the country. We want less bums, torsos, legs, sterilize the fellows. But philosophy has to take a back seat. You wanna go home. 50 bucks, I shout, flashing the first notes I can scrape out of my purse. He lets me in, telling the others respectfully to wait. Doesn't allow to elbow them out. Vanishing dregs of Lucknowi Tehzeeb. You don't have to give me all that, he says. When I get down at home, he accepts only 35 and waits till I get my key into the lock. Always tricky business at night. The street light across the road has turned iridescent in the haze. I struggle and manage. That's the story of my life. Open the house. Locks click open now and then, though spaces don't. I'm home. At night, I noticed that trains and the sound of trains ran through my mind on parallel tracks. One dream, 2 tracks. There are other things. There is the emergency, the president bathing in the bathroom, and the home minister coming with him to sign the. I could read that, but I would rather not. Uh, we could have some questions also if you feel
Yes,
like. Are
yes,
there any
yes.
other photographs?
There are photographs. There were photographs of your travels, Keki. Would you like to say a few words about your travels?
Oh,
Mountains,
well,
Greece,
I
Egypt.
traveled all over Europe with
Oh,
my
yes.
in my car. Firstly,
Hmm,
here I took my children and my wife to the south. Uh,
hmm,
I've been to Sri Lanka 2 or 3 times for poetry.
hmm,
Uh, and then from London, we took the car across to Europe and toured Europe. Uh, I wish I had another day.
hmm,
I didn't see Berlin, but the rest we went through. We didn't go to Spain because we were
hmm,
told that
hmm,
if you go to Spain, you will get lost there. It's so vast. And I went to Spain again when Cordoba University called me, and they called all the translators from Madrid. They translated my poetry. I was told Spanish poetry has no rhymes, so I chose poems which had no rhymes at all. But the book never came out. Though I
Okay.
went in 2007 with Mamang Dai. Mamang Dai came out. That is the Cyrus
Mhm.
system at
Right,
Pasar.
right, right,
And
right,
these
right.
are there is Mamang Dai also here, the second one. And these are the Spanish translators who were
Hmm.
some from Cordoba University itself and one or two from Madrid as well. And that
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
Averroes, great Averroes, his statue
Mhm.
at Cordoba.
Mhm.
Can we go further?
Madhab, the next one, please. Yes.
Sorry.
Cyrus, the tomb
Yes,
of Cyrus the Great.
Persepolis and
Yes.
that is Akshay Rustam, where the bodies of the kings of Iran are buried in those rocks. Fortunately, they have not been disturbed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And these are
Hmm.
the things which are not there in Pasargade. They are
Hmm.
only
Hmm.
there in Persepolis.
Right.
Pasargade has nothing but the landscape.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it was a beautiful, beautiful city, they say.
Yes. 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 Bhutan, Paro, Bhutan.
Yes, that is most probably Bhutan.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. Bhutan again.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That is the uh, princess of Bhavnagar, later on princess of Panna. She married
Mhm.
Panna. Yes, next. That's at the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Yes.
That's a very nice photograph. I'm rather proud of it.
Mhm.
At the Sea of Galilee, but
Yes.
where is the photograph? Oh, yes, there it is at the Sea of Galilee.
Mhm.
And next,
This is the chairs of the DSC Prize,
where
the
I,
international jury where you had to read
this
thousands of books.
this slide has to change.
Yes, because yeah, you're very far off. You can't be seen very well.
Yes, that is at the DSC Prize.
DSC Prize.
Yes,
There.
and I think that is I'm with talking
Yes,
with in conversation with Amrita.
yes, that's right. For
Yes,
ancestral affairs. For
that is
ancestral affairs.
at the
Yes.
DSC. Yes,
At
prize
the
event.
DSC. Yes,
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 yes.
that's right.
2015. How time passes. 5 years.
Yes, how time passes. This is the 10th year now of the DSC Prize, but under
You look the
lockdown.
same.
Sorry?
Hmm. With Malashri Lal and
With
the
Manoj.
lady who
Yes,
they
Surina
the
Narula
prize, the DSC
started the
prize.
DSC Prize. That's right. Yes.
She was
Manoj
very
Narula, her son. Yes.
yes. And Marla has been a great supporter of mine. I'm very
Yes.
grateful to her.
Yes. 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 Would you like to talk about your work with the Minorities Commission also? And there's a question related to that.
Sorry, I butted in. Sorry, Amrita.
No, 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 no.
I worked like hell. I went to
Mm,
every riot scene.
mm,
I was there from 2011 to 2014, and I went to 10 riot scenes. You had lots of riots during the Congress regime, if I may say so, the UPA. And now that the majoritarianism has swept over the country, there are no riots, fortunately.
mm.
That's one good one good thing that comes out of majoritarianism, but that's the only
Mm,
thing.
mm,
And I, whatever I could do, I did. And
yes.
there were glaring uh, equities. For example, I
Oh,
was in Jaipur, and I said to the people there that this colony has no, it was a Muslim colony, and it has no electricity, no water. And
mm,
they said it's an illegal colony. And the people said, but there is another illegal colony of
mm,
the majority community, and they have both bijli and pani. So
mm.
these things also happen. And we
Oh,
pointed them
yes.
out.
Oh, yes.
Uh, I went for a riot in Rudrapur, and I was walking. A Muslim had been killed, a Hindu had been killed, and the ADM was accompanying me, and there was a whole rubbish, and drains were open, and I said to the ADM, why, whether it's the Muslim's house or the Hindu's house,
Mhm.
there were two drains. I said, why can't you get the drains covered and cleaned up? And he said, sir, they are illegal colonies. But in
Mhm.
India, and they built brick. I said, in India, nobody is going to throw them out of those illegal colonies. Illegal colonies become legal. But
Mhm.
he was not willing to sanitize those those uh, bylanes
Mhm.
in any way. I
Yes.
remember that small incident,
Mhm. Mhm.
but we
It's
have careful.
heart wrenching the situation at times.
That is Munich. That is Munich, where yes,
On Kashmir,
this is
yes,
Cornelia Zetsche
yes.
who organized the whole thing, and I am being introduced, and Pankaj Misra was also there, and he was blaming the RNDW for some of the riots, and I said no, that those are the militants from Pakistan, and we had
Mm,
a 40-minute exchange of views, and I
mm,
didn't agree with him at all. And when the lady, the chairman, the chairperson stopped me, and the crowd rose up and said, they said, no, we want him to speak. After
mm,
I said,
mm,
I exceeded my time, and
mm,
I told them
mm.
what Kashmir was all about. And in those days, this is 2003,
Yes.
and the jihadis and the people who wanted independence for Kashmir, we we were fighting them as far as the security forces were concerned. And thank God the whole thing went down. But
Mm.
now there is another. I don't want to talk about Kashmir at all.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
The, that is Nirmal Verma, Gagan Gill, Shashi
Mm,
Deshpande, Ananta
mm.
Murthy.
Yes,
Uh, I don't remember the other people. I'm so sorry. Ashok Mitran was there, but
Shobhit, yes,
yes, he is here. He is here,
yes,
and
yes,
Ananta Murthy
yes.
who has become a legend in Karnataka. Uh,
Mm, mm,
and that's
mm,
me with
mm. Yes. Nirmal Verma,
and we had
Cornelia, that's it,
beer,
yes.
very tall glasses, and beer made of wheat. And the beer was white, absolutely, and not golden. And that is Ranjit Hoskote and
Yes,
Gagan, and
Gagan Gill,
Nirmal
yes.
Verma is so
Nirmal
tragically
Verma, yes.
gone. And
A
that is
range
Cornelia
of people, range
and
of writers. Yes,
Shashi Deshpande, Cornelia Zetsche,
yes,
and Nirmal Verma,
Nirmal
Gagan
Verma. Yes,
Nirmal
yes,
Verma, the
yes,
muffler.
absolutely, absolutely.
I think we
Keki,
should
can
leave
we take up two questions? Can we take up two
questions. Yes,
questions? Both are related in a way. One is by Dr. Shanaz Kama. Have you become more aware of your own personal identity over time? I remember that you said 35 years
shall I
ago.
take the first two questions?
Two questions. And the second is by Dr. Jayanti Seth. It is rare for a writer to practice both poetry and prose fiction. Which do you find more challenging? Would you like to take both these questions in a way related, your identity as a
Shall I?
writer?
I may I answer this last? I find, if I may say so, and with modesty, I hope you don't accuse me of being bumptious. I find prose a little more difficult. Not the writing of it, not the narrating of it, but it the prose means a lengthy process, and I can't work that hard now from this year onwards. I find sitting at the laptop or the computer for a long time is physically not is detrimental to me. Uh, as far as poetry, police and poetry, I was in the police for just 11 years. Another 5 I spent in the SSB in the hills. Okay. And so the field work, and in a life of, say, 80 years, what is 15 years or 11 years? So the readers and the people, the audience, must realize this and not point all the time. And don't forget that George Orwell was a policeman and was in the Burma. So there's nothing odd about the combination, and all of us have numerous personalities and numerous dimensions. Yes, I am uh, a little more conscious of being a Parsi, but still fairly marginal, despite those two books which I have talked about, uh, the um, the ancestral affairs and fire altar. Fire altar came about because Suni Tarapurwala and I were supposed to do a book on the Parsis. Then I found I couldn't, and uh, Sune Tarapurwala, whom I just met once in London, she withdrew from the book on her own. And then these thoughts stayed with me in London, and I had carried my Herodotus with me, and Herodotus and the Shahnama, and your upbringing. My father used to read from the Shahnama to us brothers, and slowly the poems came out, and they were. I finished them in 1991 to 1993. Also, a visit to Iran, that also helped me, Shiraz. And then I thought no one would be interested in India, and I left it for almost 17 years. And then came that big conference in Bombay, Zoroastrian World Zoroastrian Conference, and I said I must publish the book now. And I told Kartika Nair, who was heading the HarperCollins, a great editor she was. I've been very lucky with some editors. Ravi Dayal, one, the Ravi Singh was put me on the map with my. He said, "Let's write the contract right now," and we went for the novel. So that's Ravi Singh and Kartika Nair. I've been lucky with my editors. Any other questions?
Not many more.
Not many more. So let me take this opportunity to thank you very much, sir, for a very, very interesting conversation. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Mahatab sitting in Spain. She put all the videos together, the photographs together. Thanks to Kritika. Thanks to Dr. Shanaz Kama for arranging it. And thanks to Parzor for making all of this available to everybody. Thank you.
May I also thank Amrita, Bhalla, and Shehnaz Kama, and Mehtab Irani, and Kritika for all the help, the Jiyo Parsi, and I believe this is being telecast or whatever it is in the IIC as well. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
It's been enjoyable for me at